Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 9 of the Micawber Telecaster build, and in this episode we're finally going to get those frets into the neck. Okay, so with the neck prepared, the next thing to do is to start preparing the fret wire. Now this has already been radiused and I've just checked it against the neck and it's looking good actually. It's slightly tighter than the radius of the neck, so that's actually what we want. So we don't have to do anything with that. I'm happy to use that as it is. If not, I would have just run it through my radiusing jig just to put the radius that we needed on. If you haven't already seen it, I did a video on how to make this radiusing jig a few months ago, so I might leave a link up the top there to that video. So all I'm going to do is take the fret wire and my fret nippers, and I'm going to work my way down, cutting the frets to size and then placing them in my fret holding block, which some of you might recognise is also my paint stick for when I'm painting bodies, so multi-purpose tool there. And you'll also notice it's hard to get this in shot, but when I cut the fret wire, I cut across the face of the fret so that you're cutting perpendicular to the tang. So you're not crushing the tang up, you're cutting through it. And that's something that will really kind of pay you dividends as you try and get these frets in. Okay, so there's a number of ways you can get a fret into a slot. Vintage Fenders actually had them pushed in from the side, and that really kind of engaged them well. The trouble with that is you have to remember, if you're refretting, that you have to push them back out again from the side, unless you'll cause untold damage to the fretboard. I think they stopped doing that because it was a really kind of unproductive way of doing it. There's a lot of work involved. You can also get presses that you'd position the fret into your slot, and you'd have like a small fly press with a caul shaped to the radius of your neck, and you push them in. Now I've heard really good things about that method of doing it, so I am actually considering investing in that kit so I can do it that way myself. My main way of doing it is to simply use a snotty old soft face mallet and to knock them in. And the way I do it is knock it down on one edge of the fretboard, knock it down on the other, and then working from the centre, knock it all the way home. And then I'll just visually check it and also run my thumbnail down there just to make sure that it's properly seated, and that's seated really, really nice. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer and we can see that again. Now the reason I work from the centre outwards is it actually makes the tang move sideways as you're pounding it down, and that causes it to grip into the fret slot really, really tight, so it's very unlikely to move. Yep, and that's gone in beautifully. Okay, let's just work our way through the rest of them. Okay, so that's all the frets in. Quite pleased with the way they went in. No dramas really. So the next thing is I'm going to just take my snips again and trim off as much of this excess as I can. The way you do it is just go in kind of in line with the tang, so across the face of the fret, and just snip it off. That way you're cutting through the tang and you're not going to crush it and deform it, which will leave an ugly mess on the side of your fretboard. Just do the same on the other side. And then it's always worth just checking that you haven't lifted any of the frets at the edge. Okay, so when I was putting these in, I was checking with my thumbnail to make sure that they were seated. But to double check, I'm just going to go over them all with a fret rocker and just make sure that there's no high spots anywhere. And almost immediately there seems to be a little bit of a high spot there, so I'm just going to give it a quick tap, see if I can get that down a little bit. And that's worked a treat. Now these frets aren't really that big, and I know I'm going to have to do some dressing on them, but I want to keep that down to a minimum. So I'm going to go over the whole fretboard with the rocker and just try and address any little high spots now before I have to take a leveling beam to it. So that's all done now. This is never meant to be an exercise to get everything absolutely spot on perfect, because obviously as you're hitting one fret, you're changing the relationship that that has with another fret. So it's a kind of process where you could just go around in circles forever, but this is very close now. There's a couple of little inconsistencies, but we will get those out with the leveling and the crowning. So happy with this for the time being. So the next step is to now make these fret ends a little less lethal. They are razor sharp at the moment, so we're going to just get this in the vise and very gently nip these down with a file. And with those filed flush to the side of the board, I'm just going to give them a quick tickle over. This is 120 paper. So they're all level now, but they're square to the edge of the board, and we need to put a little bit of a bevel on. So this is where my trusty little block of walnut comes out, and this has got the appropriate angle planed into it, and it's also got a groove machined in. And all you do is you simply slot your file into that and run the block of wood along the fretboard. Until you've got a nice even bevel along the frets. I'll just do that on both sides. Now they're far from the finished article, and they are still a little bit on the sharp side, but you're not going to lacerate yourself while you're working on the neck, so I'm going to leave those there for the time being. Now I just want to take a little bit of time out to talk about one of the things that is often said to me in relation to guitar building, and that is that while people would be happy to make a body or put a kit together or something like that, they balk at the idea of making a neck. And I must admit, the first time I thought about making a neck, it was a little bit daunting. The way I go about it though is to break it down into lots and lots of little jobs. So you chunk it down not only in the way that you go about building the neck, but also mentally. So every job that you challenge is a separate thing, so you only really have to think about that one instance. And you can chunk it down into as many little pieces as you like. It could be something as simple as one operation being putting the centre line in place. Then once you've got your centre line, you can think about getting your truss rod route in. Once that's done, you can mark out and cut the shape of your neck, and you just follow it through that process, chunking it down, doing each little operation until you're finally at the point where you've nothing left to do but to carve the actual shape on the back. And even then, you can chunk that down as well. So for instance, you could make one operation carving the area of the first fret into the shape that you need it. The next operation would be carving the area at the 12th fret, and then you just continue like that until you eventually removed all the timber that you need to do. I always find if you can do it that way, there's a lot less to worry about. Admittedly, there's still a lot you can make a mistake on, but I think that if you're doing it in those small sections, it just enables you to focus better on what you're doing, and that eliminates the risk of mistakes to a certain degree. Okay, with the frets completed for the time being, the last thing I need to do at this stage is to fit the top markers along the neck. And to do this, I'm going to just I'm just going to mark a line along the top of the neck. I'll sharpen my pencil first. Roughly central to the fretboard, but making sure it's parallel to the top face. I think what you need to bear in mind as well is that the edge of the fretboard at this end is going to be a little bit thinner than it is at this end. So you need to compensate for that, just so that they're running evenly down the neck. And with that done, I'm just going to put a little check mark on all the positions that need a dot. I've put 2 at the 12th fret, and then I'm simply going to measure the distance between the 2 fret tangs, and halve it to find my position. And for my 12th position, I've found the centre point, and I've got a centre rule here. So it's got a 0 in the middle, and I'm going to place the 0 on my check mark, and I'm going to go 3mm on either side. In fact, I'm going to go 4mm on either side. And that all looks good. So I'm just going to very delicately pop them with the awl to find the centre point. And then for the actual markers, I've just got some black plastic rod, which I believe just 2mm. So I'm just going to get a 2mm drill bit, drill these holes out, and just super glue a bit of the black rod in as I go through. And there they are in position, and they're all in the right positions too. Okay, so I'm going to be back very soon, and we'll look at getting the carve done on this neck. So until then, like if you've liked, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.